Hello everyone, this is Debra Richardson, and today I am putting the AP in Happy, where accounts payable teams are empowered to protect the vendor master file from fraud. This podcast will give a voice to accounts payable team members by talking about the growing reality of cyber attacks in their world and which vendor setup and vendor management techniques they can apply to protect the vendor master file from fraud. Need training? Visit the Vendor Process Training Center to enroll in your choice of weekly live and on-demand training sessions. Plus, get access to vendor setup form templates and reference tools that will help you and your team avoid fraud, fines, and bad vendor data. So sign up for a free account to get access to free training sessions, vendor process FAQs, and a resource library with information you need to manage your vendor master file. Visit training.debrarrichardson.com today. The link will be in the show notes. Are you and your team members making confirmation calls to your vendors to confirm remittance information? If so, are you using confirmation call scripts? See how they can be valuable to prevent fraud and make the person receiving the call, or for this episode, receiving the email, more apt to confirm their information. This is the 5th episode in this series of 5. Keep listening. Welcome to episode 319, Confirmation Call Scripts number 5, Confirmation Call Voice Message and Email. And you might wonder, why on earth would you need a script for a confirmation call? And I'm going to explain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reasons why it's necessary, or at least I think it's necessary. But first, I am going to review or just give you a list of the first 4 episodes and what those titles were. And I also explained the same things, the same problems in those episodes. I just kind of focus on one a little bit more that has to do with that particular episode. So anyway, the first 4 episodes, the first one was episode 315, Confirmation Call Scripts number 1. I talked about changing banking details for ACH wire, wire payment. So I gave you a confirmation call script for that. And then in episode 316, Confirmation Call Scripts number 2, adding bank details for ACH wire payment. So I gave you a confirmation call script when you are adding bank details. And this, you might not think about it this way, but you could have a existing vendor that has check payments that you're going to convert to banking or to ACH or wire payments. And in that case, you are adding bank details, but you're adding it to an existing vendor. So technically, you're changing the vendor. And so there are some authentication things that you need to include in that process. And actually, in all of these, I have authentication so you know who you're talking to, or you know that your team members that follow the script know who they're talking to. All right, so that was episode number 2. Episode number 3 in this series was episode 317, Confirmation Call Scripts number 3, changing remit address for check payments. Yes, that's a thing. Fraudsters are also after your check payments or your vendor's check payments as well. And then the last one, the one just before this one, episode 319, Confirmation Call Scripts number 4, adding remit address for check payments. So for each payment type, electronic, be it ACH or wire, or check payment, I had set a different or separate confirmation call verbiage or wording or scripts for when you're adding and when you're changing. And so today, what I want to focus on is confirmation call, voicemail, and email. And this is when you just can't reach the person, or you don't have a telephone number for them, right? And so, or you don't have an email address for them. And so you have to reach out to your vendor in a different way to get them to contact you. But again, first, let's talk about with problems with making the confirmation call. And again, it is 5. The first one is you try to make the call, but the vendors don't pick up the phone. They're just not picking up the phone, especially not the first time. You might try again and again, and they are just not picking up the phone. And so this is the reason why I suggest that you have or leave a voicemail, or you send an email if you have an email address. Leave that voicemail if you have a phone number, because it is hard to just catch these vendors out of the blue, right? And this way, at least you have a way for them to contact you back. And I know this can be a little controversial, because I knew, when the pandemic first started, there were a lot of teams that had been told by their systems team, by their IT team, by their information security teams, right? Don't leave a voicemail. Don't send an email and say what you want, because then anybody can call you back and you don't know who they are. However, keep in mind that, and you can go back and listen to each of the episodes, but there is authentication in that callback process. So if a vendor calls you back because you left a message, because it's hard to catch, right, these vendors on the phone, then when they call back, you have a way to authenticate that they are who they say they are. That is built in to the confirmation call scripts. So that was one of the problems with making the confirmation call, and really what we are addressing with these two scripts that I'm going to talk about today. Now, the fourth, or the second through the fifth ones aren't really related to today's, but these are the reasons why I created this series. And you'll probably recognize one or more in these, especially if you haven't listened to the other episodes yet. So the second one is the vendor's point of contact. They don't know who you are either, right? And so when you contact them on the phone, just think about somebody calling you out of the blue and asking to verify your banking information. Also, the number 3, the next one, is that the folks that you have making the call, or maybe you do it too, you reveal too much information. So instead of you making the vendor give you that information, such as the bank account number that you have on file for them to make sure they are who they say they are, to having them validate the new banking information, right? Just to make sure that that it is correct. And again, that's part of the authentication process as well. And so if you don't take that opportunity to make them authenticate by making them confirm the information versus just giving it to them or repeating it and having them confirm what you said, right? Because a fraudster will always do that. Anyway, so that was one thing. And so number 4 is the team members do not include authenticating information. And so I kind of just talked about that. Authenticating information is having them confirm what's already on file if it's a change, or having them confirm the new banking as well. And then the 5th one and last one are the team members are using the information in the email or on the invoice. And that's yet another reason for authentication. But there have been instances where that has resulted in fraud. I had 2 back-to-back clients, not this year, but last year, where that happened. And so, yes, the fraudsters are going to confirm that that information is correct, because you are contacting, or your team members are contacting the fraudsters based on the information in the email or on the invoice. And keep in mind, that's not very hard to do, because a lot of these vendors, in your vendor master file, you may not have their email address or the telephone number. And when you go to, or your team member goes to try to find them on the web, they may get to the actual vendor's website, or they could get to a spoofed website too by the fraudster. But even if they get to the actual vendor's website, a lot of vendors have taken down the contact information for the accounts receivable department, because they're afraid of fraud too, right? And so you end up having team members that just want to get their work done, and so they are using the information from the invoice, or they're using the information from the email. So anyway, those were the 5 things that were the reasons why I say the confirmation call scripts are required. And just reiterating, that first reason of the vendors not picking up the phone is the focus for the confirmation call scripts for the voicemail and the email today, because you just can't reach the vendor. You can't catch them by calling them at the exact right time. And so you may have to leave a voicemail, and or you may have to send an email. So here are the scripts. Let me first start with the voicemail, and this is a request to contact them back. And both of these are really very short and sweet. And so the first one, voicemail, if you have a phone number or can find a phone number, is good morning, good afternoon, right? That regular salutation. A request has been received to make a change to your vendor information that may affect future payments or notifications. A confirmation is required prior to any change. Please contact me, and then you'll put your name, and then you'll put at your telephone number or your email address, or both. And you can also, if you don't want to put your name and you just want them to call back and speak to anyone that answers the AP help desk, for example, or your vendor team, just put that email and that generic phone number that others will also be able to respond to as well. And what's going to happen is, when they receive that call back or that email back, right, they'll tell them to contact them, or give them a phone number where they can contact them at, and then perform that confirmation call. And again, you can use the scripts from the other emails or from the other podcast episodes where I talk about updating or adding remittance information. Now, that's leaving a voicemail. Now, if you want to instead email, because maybe you have an email address, or maybe you do both. So I have a script here where first it does have something for the subject. It's the subject line would say confirmation of change request, and then you can put their company name. And then within the body of the email, you can say something like hello, and then the name of the company. And again, say a request has been received to make a change to your vendor information that may affect future payments or notifications. A confirmation is required prior to any change. Please contact the accounts payable team via email at, and then you will put your AP Help Desk email, or by phone at, and you will put your AP Help Desk phone number. Now, I did it directly to the accounts payable team or vendor team email address, but again, you can change it to your name, your email address, and also your phone number if you would like. Keep in mind, though, that for these confirmation calls, and I don't know that I said it on any of the other podcast episodes, but I always recommend you have a confirmation call log. And That way, if someone on your team maybe needs to follow up with some of the confirmations, for example, that you tried to do, they will know who to contact and what's still open and pending by viewing that log. And so make sure that's done, because if you only do it, send it, only give your phone number for the vendor to contact you back at, or another team member does the same thing, then the vendor only has that team member's information. And so it won't, if you're not documented it on a confirmation call log, no one else may ever know that, right? The vendor has been contacted and it's still pending. So if you're doing it, having each team member leave their own information, make sure that they're also using a confirmation log so that everyone knows what is pending. All right, so that is it for today. I hope that helped, and I hope the fact that I explained that when the vendors contact you back, whether you left a voicemail or email, that you are going to use, that's within each of those confirmation call scripts that I talked about in the previous 4 episodes, you're going to use authentication to make sure they are who they say they are. So don't skip on saving a voicemail or sending an email because you can't reach a vendor, because you do have a way to confirm they are who they say they are when they contact you back as a result of leaving that voicemail or sending that email. All right, so that is it for today. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the 319th episode of the Putting the AP in Happy podcast, where accounts payable teams are empowered to protect the vendor master file from fraud. Don't forget to check the show notes for the links mentioned in the podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing and writing a review of my podcast on the platform that you use to listen. Stay happy.